This is one I'm not, I think a lot of people maybe are questioning how this is going to play out. I think Cleveland is the better team.
This is VSiN Tonight with veteran handicappers Matt Humans and Wes Reynolds on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Orlando against Cleveland. This is something we talked about in hour number one. Really broke it down from the Cleveland perspective. Let's look at it from Orlando's perspective because, again, they're getting 4.5 in game number one in the land tomorrow. Early start out here in the West Coast, 10:10 a.m. Pacific Coast time. 207.5 is the total money line here if you think Orlando can steal game one. Plus $1.60, you got to lay $1.92 if you like the Cavs. I kind of feel like, and this is something we were alluding to, certain teams going in, I think like when we get to the Laker game, they're going in full confidence, like full bore, feeling really good about themselves. Cleveland isn't. They're in a weird place. They kind of feel like they almost tanked to get this matchup against Orlando. And I think Orlando, and we talked about it, how these teams mirror each other. Getting 4.5 feels like the side I probably want to be on.
Well, it's like how is Orlando going to approach it? Are they going to be nervous, or are they going to be like, you know what? We don't know what we don't know. And, we mentioned it when we were talking with our guest, Chris Fedor, Cleveland earlier, that, Orlando, their playoff experience is like Gary Harris when he was with Denver, Joel Ingles when he was with Milwaukee, but none of these key guys, the Paolo Bancheros and the Franz Wagners and the Jalen Suggses.
But they got to be like so excited to be here for the first time and feel, I have to feel like the team that's really got the pressure on them would be the Cavs.
Absolutely.
Right? And then Orlando's like, man, they're kind of free-rolling here.
Because the Cavs, look, we talked about how they got beat by the Knicks. They got kind of bullied a little bit, especially at the glass. I don't know if Orlando is really a team that's necessarily capable of doing it because they're so young. And, they have all these lottery picks because Orlando was always in the lottery for so many years. And, now they're finally getting them all together with Banchero and with Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs. Wendell Carter was a trade in the offseason. Jonathan Isaac, who I think is probably going to be big this series. Goga Bitadze has started a lot at center, but they've got a lot of young guys on this team. So, this is one I'm not, I think a lot of people maybe are questioning how this is going to play out. I think Cleveland is the better team, despite how they have played, toward the end of the season. They are the better team. What I think is going to be a little bit concerning, and keep in mind, Cleveland, by the way, started 17-1, but then went 30-32 outside of that stretch, 11-16 since the All-Star break. And a lot of it was that Donovan Mitchell's only played 7 games since the start of March. So that's the X factor. How healthy is he going to be here? Because Orlando is not a team that I think is going to be able to score very many points. I just don't feel that they're going to be able to do that. Against like the top defenses in the league, which the Cavs are, Orlando just really struggled to score, and Paolo Banchero really struggled to shoot the ball. Sub 100 offensive rating. Franz Wagner was also poor, but the Magic, very good defensively, much like Cleveland is. But if you look at the offense, worst three-point shooting team in the league. I think they were bottom 5 in made threes, and the Cavs ranked 3rd in the league in 2-point percentage defense. So Orlando is going to try to get to the line, but the problem is Cleveland doesn't really foul very much.
That's right.
So where is Orlando's route to scoring? And that is what would concern me, at least on the Magic side. But what would concern me on the Cleveland side is how they finished.
Yep.
And the fact that Donovan Mitchell wasn't healthy, and man, I don't know where to go in this series. I would lean, if you made me, I would probably take the dog with Orlando, because there's a part of me that thinks like Cleveland. It's like, okay, you wanted to position yourself for this matchup, and now you have it, and let's see how you handle it. But I think Cleveland probably wins the series, but I am not really willing to bet this. And for tomorrow's game, I want to see how many 5s are going to appear. I think there's starting to be some 5 show in this one, but you're probably going to see, I would think, more unders than you are overs in this series. Yeah. Because Both teams very good defensively. I think Orlando has less options to score, though, than Cleveland does.
207.5 for that opener tomorrow, early out here on the West Coast, certainly early on the East Coast as well. Hey, Phoenix, you can make the argument that they kind of wanted Minnesota in a matchup. I think that they feel they can pull Rudy Gobert away from the rim and try to see if they can open things up that way. Higher total here, 214 for game one. Phoenix, small dog on the road, getting a 1.5 here against Minnesota. Do the nerves lie with Minnesota, or do you think Phoenix is like, no, we got the vets now. We got Bradley Beal here. We got a true big three. We should be the favorites in this series.
Well, Phoenix did go 3-0 in the regular season series against Minnesota. Now, we know what Minnesota does. They have the defensive player in the year in Rudy Gobert. Yeah. They take away everything at the rim. But Phoenix doesn't really get a lot at the rim. They're one of the best mid-range shooting teams in the league, so they're comfortable if this turns into like a jump shooting type of game. I think it's just schematically it's a tough matchup for Minnesota because Phoenix has shot makers. They have guys. They have Booker and they have KD and they have Bradley Beal. So you got all that rim protection, but if they're not going to the rim, then they could be in trouble. Phoenix, by the way, I mentioned sweeping the season series. They won 3 times by double digits here. So I think the Suns really the rightful favorite in the series, even though they are not in game number 1.